What's going on, knuckleheads? Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Tonight, we're going to talk about something really interesting that was tweeted by Canelo Alvarez, and that is Canelo a legend after beating Sergey Kovalev and becoming a four-division champion? Yesterday, Canelo Alvarez tweeted, and he actually pinned the tweet. He wrote, first with the Mexican flag, Hoy nos convertimos en leyenda. Somos cuatro veces campeones mundiales. Then he wrote in English with the American flag, today we became legends. We are 4 times world champions. Hashtag Team Canelo at MGM Grand Garden Arena. So it looks like Canelo Alvarez now, after beating Sergey Kovalev, is considering himself a legend in the sport of boxing. Now, this is very interesting to me, especially on this channel, considering the fact that I like to call it how it is when I feel like the BS that stems from boxing culture and the boxing establishment rears its head. It's always a problem, and it's something that I like to call out. And in this situation, and I talked about it yesterday, Canelo Alvarez is the golden goose in this sport. He is the biggest name in this sport, and he is always in a position to rectify the problems with boxing, which are numerous. And I think the biggest problems with boxing are the constant A-side versus B-side fights. And I've touched on this before. The padding of records that we see with every promoter and every upcoming young star. Just padding of records. The uneven fights like the 45-1 underdog fight we saw just recently on the Canelo undercard. And stuff like that just, there's no way that a hardcore boxing fan can be confronted with that kind of information and come away with, hell yeah, this sport is 100% legitimate and the integrity of the sport is being held up. There's just no way you can feel that way. So when Canelo tweets out something like this, it's a big deal, especially in the context of the corruption that has run rampant through boxing, continues to do so. And unfortunately, it seems to me that Canelo, instead of sort of using his power for good to sort of rectify the problems with boxing and maybe make some drastic changes in the sport that would allow the sport to thrive and not play second fiddle to the UFC like what we saw on Saturday night, which was extremely impressive and shocking, I think, if you were watching it. I don't believe Canelo has used his position for good, and I'm going to explain what I mean. Canelo Alvarez, again, moved up from middleweight to super middleweight to light heavyweight to fight Sergey Kovalev, because Sergey Kovalev is no doubt the biggest name in the light heavyweight division. However, does that mean that Sergey Kovalev is the best fighter in the light heavyweight division? Absolutely not, knuckleheads. And that is a sort of deceptive practice that we've seen time and time again lately from the best boxers on earth, including Canelo Alvarez, the most popular and the person in the best position to change the sport for the better. Much respect to Canelo for moving up in weight to 175 pounds in order to take on a challenge and add another belt to his resume. Much respect to anybody that steps into a ring, and is willing to fight a guy 15 pounds north of where he's at naturally, and fight a guy that was dangerous at one point and was a champion. However, again, Sergey Kovalev, biggest name, weakest link. And there's no doubt about that. Beterbiev, Dmitry Bivol are two guys that are better than Kovalev any day of the week. The Kovalev we saw out there against Canelo Alvarez was, as I predicted in my prediction video for the fight, a fighter in the twilight of his career with absolutely no chance to beat Canelo Alvarez. If you like to talk about combat sports, knuckleheads, and you want to support the channel and support Fighters Rep Promotions, the only kickboxing promotion in the entire state of California, please click the subscribe button, the bell notification icon below. Also, be sure to donate in the super chat or get your Fighters Rep gear or any Amazon gear in the affiliate link below. The proceeds will be reinvested right back into Fighters Rep Promotions. So, Coke Boys in the chat, thank you so much for joining the chat, brother. It's much appreciated. He says, not to me. He's a Dodger. Would like to see him fight Callum Smith or Dimitri. And I believe you may be talking about Derevyanchenko. I don't know who you mean by Dimitri, but maybe you mean Demetrius Andrade. Either way, you're absolutely right, Coke Boys. Canelo Alvarez has not fought the best guys out there at middleweight. He hasn't fought the best guys out there at super middleweight. He hasn't fought the best guys out there at light heavyweight. And if you're going to earn the respect of the boxing public, not the casuals that you're catering to with this tweet, and again, I respect Canelo Alvarez because he's a fighter. I respect anybody that steps in the ring. But if you're going to earn the respect of the boxing public, if you're going to become a real legend, like you're saying you are in your tweets, you have to, at the very least, clean out your own division. And one of the key things that Canelo Alvarez is failing to realize is it's not moving up and down and winning belts at different divisions that makes you great. I think he's putting a lot of stock in that. What makes you great, in my opinion, is being dominant, running through your entire division. And it's only at that point, when you've beaten everybody there is to beat and when you've outgrown the division, perhaps physically, or you've just cleaned it out, that you should move up to the next division. And for Canelo Alvarez, knuckleheads, it was not time for him to move up to another division, because even at the 160-pound middleweight division, Saul Canelo Alvarez was constantly at a size disadvantage, especially when it came to height. Sure, he's bulky and he puts on a lot of muscles and he goes out there and he does a good job. But if you noticed him, especially in the fights against Triple G, Danny Jacobs, he is the smaller guy. He has no business moving up to 175 pounds. Again, much credit to him for being able to go up there and beat a washed up, let's face it, a washed up Sergey Kovalev. But he has no business moving up weight classes when he hasn't even beat the best guys in his own weight class. And it's not like he outgrew the weight class. Again, he's not that big of a guy. He is doing what they would call, in the legal world, he's forum shopping. He's looking for the easiest category, the easiest jurisdiction to fight in. He's looking for the easiest fighters in the easiest divisions so he can say, hey, I'm a 4-weight division champion. And I alluded to this before. There's a real chance that he can move up all the way to cruiserweight, which is the 200-pound upper limit, and fight Ilunga Makabu for his title, a guy who lost to Tony Bellew, who was historically a middleweight and a light heavyweight before moving up to heavyweight to fight David Haye, and cruiserweight. He can move up to fight Ilunga Makabu, win that fight, and become a 5-weight division champion. But what will it mean? Will he be a substantive 5-weight division world champion? Or is that just something that's going to be written in the history books? And is he going to be content with that? Because it's not really a legitimate multiple weight world champion the way some of these other guys were, who were cleaning out their divisions. You know, guys you think about that were multiple weight world champions, you know, are maybe guys like Manny Pacquiao, Oscar De La Hoya, you know, Sugar Shane Mosley, Floyd Mayweather. These guys, and even some of those guys were picking and choosing their fights a bit, but man, at least they dominated one category. At the very least, they dominated one before they decided to move on to the next. Canelo Alvarez has never done that. And it's unfortunate because he is the face of boxing. He does have the clout. He does have the influence over the boxing game and all the young aspiring fighters. And it's just not transpiring the way it should. Marco Martinez, Whiskey Dragonfly, thank you for joining the chat, brothers. Much appreciated. Marco Martinez writes, you have to think of solid parameters of what a legend is. And it's hard. It's hard to think of solid parameters, and I think it should be very hard to refer to yourself as a legend. I believe somebody has to wait for someone else with clout to bestow that kind of description upon them. But he's taken it upon himself to call himself a legend because he's beaten champions in 4 divisions. Mind you, he fought the weakest guy at light heavyweight, a guy that we predicted on this channel was going to get knocked out or finished in the latter half of the fight, and that's exactly what happened. So without even clearing out his divisions, any of the 4 divisions that he's competed at, he's referring to himself as a legend, and I couldn't disagree more than that. I do think that's the kind of thing you do at the end of your career when you've done many great things and you look back on your career and you say to yourself, I had a fantastic career. But even then, you don't refer to yourself as a legend. It comes off a little narcissistic, especially in light of the fact that you're fighting guys that really don't have a chance to beat you. I do give Canelo props for fighting guys like Austin Trout and Erislandy Lara when he fought those guys. Those guys had a shot to beat him, and he went and fought them. And a lot of people think Lara won that fight against Canelo. And he also fought Floyd Mayweather. And let's not forget what Floyd did to him. But, of course, Canelo was a young guy at the time, you know. So I don't think it's the same Canelo now that it was back then. He's definitely improved. But my point is, you shouldn't call yourself a legend unless you're legendary in at least 1 weight division, my man. Clean out at least 1 weight division before you move on to 3 others and claim titles against guys that really aren't as good as you are. The best guys he's fought at the right time was Triple G, especially in that first fight, and Danny Jacobs. And those are the best guys he fought at the right time where he was at their level. I think he wasn't near Floyd Mayweather's level when he fought him, but kudos to him for taking on Floyd Mayweather. But again, the point is, fight the best guys in your division. Clear out your division, then move north. Because I believe that's the way you're supposed to do it. You either move north when you clear out your division, or when you've physically gotten to the point where your body just can't make the weight anymore. And that is not what's happening. Whiskey Dragonfly, peace, fam. Peace to you, brother. Thank you so much for joining. It says Canelo should challenge himself against Andrade or Charlo and just shut the haters up. And he shouldn't just do it for the haters, Whiskey Dragonfly. I agree. He should do what you're saying at the beginning, which is challenge himself. Challenge yourself. See if you're as great as you say you are. See if you're the legend that you're claiming yourself to be on Twitter. And it's not, that's not, he's not being humble at all here, knuckleheads. I mean, he's referring to himself as a legend after beating Sergey Kovalev, who's 36 years old, just went life and death with Anthony Yarde, who doesn't even spar people. Apparently Anthony Yarde, who, went life and death with Sergey Kovalev in his last fight, doesn't even spar people, you guys. His coach doesn't even let him spar. He just lifts weights and does mitt work and whatever other boxing workouts there are. Doesn't spar, is my understanding. Life and death with that guy. Got TKO'd by Eleider Alvarez. Got finished by Andre Ward before that, which is respectable. Andre Ward is a beast, but he got finished by him. Canelo knew that this guy, knuckleheads, this Sergey Kovalev, was no longer the crusher and was ready to be crushed, and that's why he took the fight. Marco Martinez says, let's be real, it's almost impossible to truly clean out a division. There's always another guy who's coming up. Look at Mayweather or John Jones. Sure, but John Jones has cleaned out the division. Floyd Mayweather basically cleared out the division, basically. I mean, there were a couple guys here and there he could have fought. But who did Canelo really fight? There's Callum Smith at super middleweight. There's a ton of guys at middleweight. Charlo, Andrade, Derevianchenko, Billy Joe Saunders. There are other title holders. The guy at light heavyweight that he picked is the weakest link. So yes, I understand that there's always another guy coming up. But at least do enough in your division to try to maybe unify the titles. Do something that's of note other than, winning a controversial decision to Triple G. I mean, his highlight at this point, is probably that second Triple G fight, which was close as hell, and some people thought Triple G won. And the other highlight is beating Daniel Jacobs. He's got a controversial as hell win over Erislandy Lara. He had a tough win over Austin Trout. A wipeout loss to Floyd Mayweather. And so what is he resting his hat on when he says, I'm a legend? What is he basing that on when he says, I'm a legend? Is it because he sells a lot? Is it because he's popular? He's a great fighter, don't get me wrong. But he doesn't have that many dominating marquee wins for him to be calling himself a legend. And he certainly isn't fighting the best guys. He's not. And if you ask me, just being objective, moving up to fight Kovalev instead of the other light heavyweights demonstrates a weakness. It demonstrates a facade. It is a facade. You're taking on the weakest guy with the biggest name because you're appealing to casual fans, because you know that the hardcore fans are not going to buy what you're selling. And Marco Martinez says Cotto was a big win as well. Cotto was a big win, but Cotto was way past his prime when Canelo beat him by decision. By decision. Manny Pacquiao finished him. Cotto beat him by decision. Canelo also beat Sugar Shane Mosley. But again, well past his prime. Coke boys. Not to mention, Sergey Kovalev didn't have time to recoup from his last fight with Yard. That's true, and that's what Kovalev was putting the loss on, and I can see that. I mean, when you're 36 years old, you go life and death like that. He probably got hurt in that fight. So he probably needed some more time to heal from that fight, but you don't say no to Canelo Alvarez. He's the new Floyd Mayweather. He's the new lottery ticket. He'll change your life. You break out the red panties when Canelo Alvarez calls your name. Like Conor McGregor says, it's red panty night. So none of these guys can say no to Canelo Alvarez. It's just too much money on the line. Whiskey Dragonfly, Makabu Mukabahu. Ilunga Makabu is a cruiserweight with a title at cruiserweight. Someone that I'm thinking Canelo could possibly fight in the future. And Canelo actually indicated today that moving back down to middleweight is going to be hard. So you see, by moving up to light heavyweight, he now gets to avoid the guys at middleweight and at super middleweight perhaps. And, continue with this facade that's fooling casuals, but not the hardcore boxing fans. Let's just face it. I mean, I don't think any of us who really follows boxing agrees with Canelo moving up to 175 pounds and leaving all the competition at middleweight and super middleweight to languish. I have a problem with that. And then referring to himself as a legend. Coke Boy says, Makabu is the cruiser champ. That's true. Marco Martinez, referring to yourself as a legend is a millennial thing to do. You can't give yourself your own nickname. It's weird. I agree with that 100%, man. Even the young amateurs we've had on the Fighters Rep cards, when I've asked them, do you have a nickname yet? A lot of them say, I haven't earned one yet. Even they know this. Why does Canelo not know this? I don't know. Whiskey Dragonfly, Canelo is a diva. It's no surprise he called himself a legend. He probably talks about himself in third person. I'm willing to bet he has a lot of cosmetic facial products in his bathroom. Oh my goodness, Whiskey Dragonfly. That's hilarious. Marco Martinez, let's be real, George. Boxing is 100% a money deal now. Andrade and Charlo don't draw flies to shit. Winning fake titles in multiple weight divisions is at least marketable. Cotto was a big win as well. Yeah, I mean, I guess winning multiple titles in several different divisions is where it's at now. I guess that's a bigger deal than unifying titles in your division or being the king of your division. Who knows, knuckleheads? Who knows where this sport is headed? My point is, he's taking it as the head of the sport. He's taking it in the wrong direction. This is not the way this should be playing out. He should be encouraging people to fight the best in their division, to unify the titles, and maybe to get rid of several titles and for there to be just one absolute title in each division. Kind of like the way it is with the UFC, with the exception of the BMF belt. Excuse me, which I think we could all agree was a cool little thing that the UFC did. I don't think they're going to put the BMF belt up for grabs anytime soon again. But, there should be one division, one champion. Instead, now we've got this guy. He's not even thinking about unifying titles. He's not even thinking about running his division. He's just moving up and down at this point, jumping up and down. God Boxing says, what's up, bro? Smith called out Canelo. I appreciate you being in the chat, God Boxing. Thank you, brother. And I saw that. I saw Callum Smith say, hey, you're not the man at super middleweight unless you beat me. And Callum Smith is right about that. You know what? Callum Smith is a tall, big, strong, scary super middleweight that could probably give Canelo some problems. And I don't know if Canelo's going to want to go down there to fight him. Whiskey Dragonfly says, in a perfect world where judges don't receive manila envelopes with large sums of money, how would a prime Sergio Martinez versus Canelo fight look like? Man, that would have been a fantastic fight if both guys were in their prime. I think Sergio Martinez in his prime was a handful. And I think, honestly speaking, a Sergio Martinez in his prime beats Canelo Alvarez. That's my opinion. Probably a very unpopular opinion. But Sergio Martinez, a real middleweight, and Canelo at middleweight, and I think Sergio Martinez would box circles around him. And I also think Sergio Martinez hits hard enough to be a threat. Let's not forget what Sergio Martinez did to Paul Williams. That was vicious. That was one of the most vicious knockouts I've ever seen in boxing. And Sergio Martinez schooled a lot of people. A lot of people. He schooled them. When Kermit Cintron was still decent, I thought Sergio Martinez schooled him and stopped him. And they kind of did some weird waving off the knockout and let it go to decision, and it was total bullshit. So I think Sergio Martinez wins that fight, knuckleheads. And I'm still trying to get over the fact that Canelo Alvarez is referring to himself as a legend. You know, at this stage in his career, when he's not even 30 years old yet, and especially after beating a washed-up Sergey Kovalev. I have a real problem with that. You know, I don't mind, honestly speaking, I don't mind Canelo Alvarez being considered a legend at this point, although I believe that that's something you reserve as a classification for somebody who's put together an incredible body of work and has finished and exited the sport. You look back on their career and then you classify them as a legend at that point. I wouldn't have a problem with somebody else calling Canelo a legend, or even him calling himself a legend. I mean, it's the way you got to feel about yourself as a fighter, I guess. But the fact that he's doing it after beating a washed up, weakest link in the light heavyweight division, Sergey Kovalev, I'm not buying what he's selling. I'm not buying it, and I don't like it. And I think it's bullshit. I think it's bullshit, and I think boxing fans should be calling him out on it, and I think they are if you look at the replies on Twitter, where he wrote and pinned that he is basically a legend because he won titles in 4 divisions. Marco Martinez says, Martinez outboxes Canelo. I agree with that. Whiskey Dragonfly, that Paul Williams was brutal. Face planted him. Hell yeah, man. That was sick. Got Boxing 510 says, a knockout of the year, Sergio versus Paul. Man, that was a brutal knockout. You know, and I'll be honest, man, there's a part of me that really feels sympathetic towards Paul Williams. I don't even like to bring him up in this light because of what ended up happening to him and how he ended up paralyzed. You know, that's something I still think about once in a while, and I'll like Google, hey, like, how is Paul Williams doing? In hopes that, you know, somehow he was able to resolve his paralysis, which, you know, maybe sounds ridiculous, but you never know. I mean, sometimes things happen. People heal when they shouldn't. Miracles happen. You know, you've seen some of these football players or whatnot. It looks like they're never going to walk again, and then they're able to do it. So, you know, it kind of pains me. It's bittersweet to even bring up Paul Williams. He was such a great fighter in his time. And to think about how he got knocked out kind of just brings back memories of Paul Williams and then what happened to him and how he was paralyzed. It was just a very sad situation. I don't know why I associate Paul Williams with that kind of sadness. You know, that's not the way you want to see a guy who was, you know, just standing up and tearing people up, the Punisher, you know, just killing people. So it's really sad for me to think about Paul Williams. I wish him the best. I constantly hope that, he gets back on his feet someday. Marco Martinez says, Canelo has become the second greatest Mexican fighter. No way, brother. No way. No way. I don't think so. I think Julio Cesar Chavez, Salvador Sanchez, Marco Antonio Barrera, Eric Morales. Those are just some guys. Those are just some Mexican legends that you can say are still ahead of Canelo. I'm sure people could come up with more. And I'm sure there'll be plenty more because, Mexico produces some of the best fighters in the world. And they'll just continue to do so. And I think Canelo is very polarizing in the Mexican community because the Mexican style of fighting is based a lot on not only the strategy of crowding your opponent, going to the body, being willing to take punishment to get to that body, because the style is to crowd the opponent and go to the body and fight on the inside, which takes a lot of heart and determination. So because it takes so much heart and determination and desire, they expect you to be courageous. And it's just hard for a lot of people in the Mexican public, but Mexican boxing fans, at least from what I've seen in forums, to sort of support Canelo because they see what he's doing. They see the fact that he's fighting, guys he shouldn't fight, fighting at catch weights, picking out the weakest guy like he did against Kovalev. They see this stuff. You can't fool everybody. People, there are real hardcore fans in every culture. And in Mexican style boxing, you have to be courageous to earn their respect. And it's just, he hasn't won a lot of them over yet. He just hasn't. Got Boxing says, yes, I think Canelo's getting a little ahead of himself. I agree, my man. Calling yourself a legend on Twitter and then pinning it? Come on, man. You don't want to pin that. You kind of want that to... You kind of want that to go away, but hey, he means it. By all means, be confident in your abilities. Think you're a legend, but I'm going to have to disagree. A, with you calling yourself a legend. B, with you doing it after you beat Sergey Kovalev. Got Boxing says, or rather, Whiskey Dragonfly. Some of the old school Mexicans give Canelo a lot of shit. Is this an attempt to spin the narrative to the Mexican fans to get them on his side? I think it's just him being proud of himself and, trying to get, maybe trying to get people to see him as a legend. But I don't think that that's something that you have to put out there. I think that's something people label you as based on your accomplishments. So it's almost like an insecurity type thing, if you ask me. Got Boxing 5'10", Salvador Sanchez. You know it, brother. You know it. Jamaican Boxing. My brother, thank you so much for joining the chat, my man. He says, Canelo's a very good fighter, but he's also a drug cheat. Great fighters don't take steroids. Oof. Jamaican Boxing bringing that truth all the way up there from the icy Canadian tundra and just cold, hard truth like a cold front coming from the north, just sweeping down into the southwest and giving everybody THO and a vicious sense of reality, a vicious dose of reality. Thank you, my brother, Jamaican Boxing. Whiskey Dragonfly, shout out to Al Heyman, who allegedly took care of Paul Williams' medical expenses and still looks out for him. Big shout out to Al Heyman if that's the case. Huge shout out to Al Heyman. Even though his fighters don't really fight anybody, I'd like to see them fight somebody. Especially Gervonta Davis and Deontay Wilder. I'd like to see them fight better competition earlier in their careers, Gary Russell Jr. But if that's what he's doing for Paul Williams, he definitely has my respect on that issue. So yeah, that's a cool thing. Also, I don't know. I brought up Gervonta Davis. I don't know if you guys heard. Apparently, Adrian Broner, Adrian Broner punched Gervonta Davis at the Canelo fight. Apparently, they got into a fist fight, and he punched Gervonta Davis and threw a haymaker at Gervonta Davis's manager, I think it was. And I found out because I read it in an article online. And I don't know who wrote the article off the top of my head, but they hilariously wrote in the article that it's not like Adrian Broner to let that they were surprised basically that Adrian Broner let his hands go. And obviously referring to the fight with Gervonta Davis. I just thought that was ridiculous because, Adrian Broner, I mean, just never lets his hands go in any of his fights, so I don't know. I thought that was pretty hilarious. Marco Martinez says Salvador Sanchez was good, but was young when he died. Barrera Morales lost against the best competition. Yeah, but they also beat the best competition. John Wick, appreciate you being on the chat, brother. If he wants to be a legend, he needs to fight a real fight, not one who is old and past his prime, like maybe Spence. I agree. Spence would be a great fight for Canelo Alvarez, but will he do it? Remains to be seen. Casual fan, thank you so much for joining the chat. Please hit the subscribe and bell notification icon buttons. Much appreciated. He writes, what make difference between Pacquiao versus Canelo legacy? Well, a lot of differences. Pacquiao is an 8-division world champion. Pacquiao fought the best people in their prime and laid a lot of them out. For instance, Pacquiao fought Ricky Hatton and put him to sleep. I think it was in the second round. Pacquiao fought Miguel Cotto and knocked him out, or TKO'd him. Pacquiao fought Eric Morales a bunch of times. He fought Juan Manuel Marquez a bunch of times. Who has Canelo fought? Who has Canelo fought that he's beaten decisively? Canelo has not beaten that many people decisively. Elite fighters. Pacquiao did. Pacquiao, Also, Pacquiao fought Floyd Mayweather and he got clearly beat, in my opinion, but not as badly as Canelo got beat. And Canelo's the bigger guy. Pacquiao beat everybody, man. Pacquiao just beat Keith Thurman. Would Canelo Alvarez even fight Keith Thurman? Would Canelo Alvarez take a risk like that? I also think Pacquiao's choosy about who he's fighting, especially at this age. But in his prime, he was just fighting everyone. Man, he fought Antonio Margarito. He fought Oscar De La Hoya. Okay, Oscar De La Hoya was done by then, but he still fought him, and he was a much bigger guy. But he fought Antonio Margarito, who was still sort of dangerous. Pacquiao fought everybody, man. Pacquiao fought everybody and looked sensational. Canelo, he wins when he does win against top tier competition, he barely wins. He barely wins. I just don't think you can compare their legacies at all. At all. Jamaican boxing, Canelo's rap name is Little Hydration Clause. Oh my God. Marco Martinez, casual fan, they both took steroids, but Pac-Man never got popped. Damn, Marco Martinez, how do you know Pac-Man took steroids? You don't have any proof of that? Marco Martinez says, Jamaican boxing beat me to it. Casual fan wrote, Eddie Reynoso needs to chill out a bit before about fighting better BF. I saw that. I saw him saying that, he's ready for better BF. He ain't ready for better BF. Canelo Alvarez is not going to fight better BF. I'd be extremely surprised if Canelo Alvarez decided to fight better BF. Before I continue, I want to thank you guys for joining me on this chat. Definitely hit the subscribe button, the bell notification icon if you haven't already. Please feel free to donate to the super chat. Get your Fighters Rep gear below. Rock your Fighters Rep shirts. They're in the links in the description. Also, if you buy anything for the holidays from Amazon, or you just buy stuff from Amazon, do so by clicking the affiliate link below. They'll, basically give us commission. It won't cost you anything extra. Just by clicking the affiliate link below, it'll take you to some hand wraps. Even if you don't buy those hand wraps, if you buy anything from Amazon after clicking that link, we'll get credit for it. You'll be helping me build this channel and Fighters Rep Promotions. Also, we're going to start doing some more interviews. We're going to start inviting some fighters on with us to this live chat. It's something I'm excited about doing. I was trying to get somebody online today, but we'll see. I want to get somebody notable for the first one, so definitely check that out. And also on February 8th, we're going to be having Fighters Rep number 9 at Long Beach at the Golden Sales Hotel. Definitely tune in to check that out. I believe it's going to be on Fight TV, so download that app before we put it on there. Obviously, we'll upload the fights onto YouTube for free for you to enjoy afterwards. But if you want to watch it live, you'll download the Fight TV app, hopefully, and check it out. Let's see what we got here. Got Boxing 510. If Salvador Sanchez didn't pass away in his prime, he would be a top 3. Remember, he was a BMF. He sure as hell was, man. Jamaican boxing, I'm not a Canelo hater. After the Kovalev fight, I think Canelo beats Charlo, but would get outboxed by Andrade. And I think that Andrade fight would be very tough for Canelo Alvarez. I mean, he's got a chance to win, but I just don't feel like he's the kind of guy that's gonna fight at this point fights that are hard for him to win. Whiskey Dragonfly. Sadly, a lot of our favorite boxers, MMA fighters, took steroids. Canelo, allegedly Pac-Man, allegedly Holyfield, Shane Mosley, James Toney, Klitschko. It's true, a lot of these guys did, get busted for stuff. Dillian White, Tyson Fury, Alexander Povetkin. All these guys got popped. Jarrell Miller got apparently popped with like 3 different things. So Yoel Romero. Who else? I mean, there's so many people. Freaking Anderson Silva. So it's crazy, man. All these guys have done a little something. Or a lot of them have. Got Boxing 510 says, Canelo don't want that smoke. LOL. He don't want that better BF smoke. That better BF smoke is especially potent and stank. You want to stay away from that one. Whiskey Dragonfly reports our Oscars in talks with better BF for a Canelo fight, but it could be just publicity BS. I don't know, man. I don't know if Canelo would take that fight. I mean, if Canelo takes that fight, he's got a lot of respect for me if he takes that fight, because Better BF is a murderous puncher. And Better BF can fight too. So knuckleheads, I appreciate you guys joining me tonight. I've been on for almost 45 minutes at this time. And I definitely got a long day tomorrow, so I appreciate you guys joining me. Again, let your peeps know about this channel. We'll be doing this almost every night at 9 p.m. Not sure I'm going to be on tomorrow, but, stay tuned. You'll know if you click the bell notification icon and the subscribe button, or next to the subscribe button, if we're on tomorrow. If not, I'll see you guys the day after. Again, much love to you guys. Thank you guys for joining me, and we'll see you soon, knuckleheads. Take care.